Live from the Pioneer PBS studios in Granite Falls, it's Meet the Candidates. This candidate forum is designed to inform you, the viewing public, about the candidates running for Minnesota state office in our region. Meet the Candidates is brought to you by the members of Pioneer PBS. This program features the candidates for Minnesota House District 22A. And now your moderator for tonight's program, Jim Thureen.
Good evening. I'm Jim Thureen, your host for Meet the Candidates tonight. This Pioneer PBS presentation is intended to inform you about the candidates who seek election or re-election to the Minnesota legislature. This segment features candidates who are on the ballot in House District 22A. They are incumbent Republican Representative Joe Schumacher and his challenger, DFL candidate Chris Baumberger. First, a few words about the district and communities in it.
Minnesota House District 22A is made up of Lincoln, Pipestone, Rock, and Murray counties and portions of Lyon and Nobles counties. Major cities include Laverne, Pipestone, and Slayton.
All right, now if you reside in this district, your questions will be given priority for the candidates to answer. All Minnesotans, regardless of residency, are encouraged to join this conversation. Our intention is to let our viewers gain an understanding of legislative priorities. Please direct your questions via the methods listed on the bottom of the screen. Now, let's meet tonight's candidates. By a coin toss, the candidates have determined the order in which they will appear with their opening statement. So we will begin with the first 2-minute period for the candidate to introduce himself and tell you about who he is, what he is, and why he's running. So the flip the coin candidate winner was Chris Baumberger. So, Chris, if you'd like to start, please.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to say thank you to Pioneer Public Television for hosting this debate, and thank you to Joe for joining me tonight, and also to those of you watching. My name is Chris Baumberger. I live in Slayton with my wife, Rigel, and I have 3 children. My oldest boy is in the Navy, and just going through a nuclear engineering program in which he just graduated from the first part. I also have a junior in high school, and a first grader, and a preschooler. I have many in my family that have served in the military, including my brother and myself. I was in the Army Guard for 6 years. I graduated from Minnesota State Mankato, where I went to school for psychology and corrections. And after that, spent most of the last 20 years living in southern Minnesota. I currently work for the Murray County Assessor's Office as a property appraiser. I also officiate sports. Some of you may recognize me from officiating your kids' ball games. The reason I'm running is because I believe that everyone should have access to affordable health care, and we need to do what we can to increase access to mental health care as well. I also believe that we need to be good stewards of the environment by supporting and expanding alternative energy sources. And I also believe that Minnesota needs to remain a leader in education. I believe that the criminal justice system needs to be fair and equal. And I hope that by the end of the evening, you'll know more about me, and I look forward to answering your questions tonight. Thank you.
And thank you. Next, we hear from incumbent Republican Representative, I'm going to get this right, I swear, Joe, Schumacher. How does that sound?
That is absolutely right. All right, good evening and welcome. I'm Representative Joe Schumacher, and I've had the opportunity and the great privilege to be the state representative for southwestern Minnesota for the last 10 years. And I grew up in southwest Minnesota, was born and raised, grew up in Laverne, Went up to school just up the road to Marshall to get my undergraduate degree, then moved back to Laverne to start a family cleaning business while working on my graduate degree online before it was cool to do all of your classes online. I had started that cleaning business, and from there we grew it into other products and services that were provided for people in the Laverne and the Rock County area so that they didn't have to bring their money, their jobs, and their tax revenue to Sioux Falls and buy things there. We wanted to provide services locally. I woke up, like thousands of other small business owners back in the spring, to find out that the governor had told us that our work and our businesses are not essential to the functions of living and that we were shut down. Now, I appealed that and we were able to get turned around, but for many businesses, from Hills to Hendricks, I was receiving calls constantly to try and understand why we were being shut down while other businesses and other economies just across the border were not, and how could that be fair? Now, I've served in the legislature, as I said, for 10 years, worked in the Health and Human Service area, and am running again for re-election so that we can work to turn around what we've seen in the economy and what we've seen for policies so that we can have a stronger Minnesota and invest in our future, not only through the way that we do our health care, but through education and really trying to deal with the issues that are coming forward in a more productive and full way. Thank you.
And thank you, Representative. Before we start the questions, just a quick reminder to the viewers at home that you can learn how to register to vote in Minnesota and find your voting location on the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. That's capital M, capital N, votes.org. All right. Now let's get started. As a reminder, the rules, such as they are that each question will be asked to both candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Both candidates also have the opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal if they so choose. We will alternate which candidate gets asked each question first. Now, so our first question tonight goes to Representative Schumacher. I'm getting there. And the question is this: do you support the right to repair movement?
Thank you for that question. I think that the right to repair movement has some qualities to it that do make sense. We want to be able to have people have jobs and be able to have the ability to create from their own businesses. However, I do know that it is really part of the sales agreement that implement dealers or car dealers, that they have the exclusive rights to do the warranty work and repair. When it comes to things like ensuring that the equipment is running the most efficiently and that it's running the most ecologically sound and safe, that can only be insured and protected at the level that we have dealers working in. So I do not support having a right to repair position on that. I know that it doesn't affect our business yet on the appliance side, but I could see that coming, and I even then would want to be able to protect those that are selling the products to be able to supply the repairs for those products in a way that meets the standards that are involved with that. And so I do not support the right to repair, although I understand where the arguments are in favor of it.
All right, thank you. Same question for Chris Baumberger. Do you support the right to repair movement?
Okay, boy, I'm a little shocked at the first question here, right to repair. I do support the right to repair movement, although it may void warranties depending on what the product is. I know when I need to fix something, a lot of times I go to a YouTube video, and nowadays you can repair most anything by, somebody's done it on YouTube and you can follow basic instructions. Not going to guarantee it won't break a warranty, but I'd have to research that further, but in my mind, I think we all have the right to repair our product, not guaranteeing, though, that it won't break the warranty.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttal to Representative? Okay. On we go to the next question. And this is a broad ranging that gives you a lot of flexibility, I think. So we ask the question first to Chris. What are the most important challenges facing the district, and what do you propose to address them?
Well, I think we'd be remiss to say, to not say that COVID's the biggest challenge right now facing our district. It's definitely ground a lot of things to a halt, not to mention small business and the economy. We need to do what we can to keep small businesses open and operating, but quite honestly, things aren't going to get back to normal until we take care of COVID. And I don't know if all the precautions put in place are necessary, but I think it's important that we wear masks and that we social distance. We need to keep each other safe, protect our neighbors, and if we can address COVID, the economy will take care to an extent. It'll start to recover on its own once we get back out and doing things like we used to do. Other issues with our district is we need to attract jobs. We continually have businesses closing and moving out. True Shrimpo is going to open up in Laverne. I think that's not going to happen now. We've had nursing homes closing. We lost 50 jobs in my own community in Slayton from our nursing home closing, and those jobs aren't being replaced. So we definitely need to look at bringing in dealing with COVID and bringing in jobs.
All right, thank you. And the same question for Representative Schumacher. What are the most important challenges facing the district, and what do you propose to address them?
Well, thank you for that question. And I think that Mr. Baumberger really hit the nail on the head with the issues that we're facing. Every part of the state is facing a lot of the same issues, but we have a little bit of a unique twist on a lot of that because we are trying to create jobs in this area, and we're trying to keep our businesses local and keep them growing here. And that's difficult to do when we're shut down and the states next to us are not. That makes it very hard. I know that the economic developer in South Dakota has been fielding a lot of calls from businesses in Minnesota wondering how they could get moved over, and that's going to continue to be a struggle. And we're seeing it throughout businesses up and down the district on just how difficult it is to just stay open and get people in and shopping at their businesses. It's a real tough road for them to do that. And if they're not able to produce, and if people aren't shopping there, the local economies are going to start to dry up. And that's the challenges that we're really facing, and that ties into what we get for education funding. And if people aren't driving on the roads because they're not working here, then we're challenged with transportation funding. And so I really think that the issues addressed we would absolutely agree on is how do we get this economy up and running again? How do we make sure that people are staying in this part of the district, and how we work to protect that? Some of the things that we're going to have to really focus on and address coming up is the fact that the state's going to be facing more than a $5 billion deficit. And how do we balance that without encouraging people that can to move to other states so they're not paying for increased taxes? That's one area we're going to really have to be looking at. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And the next question will first be addressed by Representative Schumacher. And the question comes from Pipestone. For each of you, are you a, quote, law and order candidate, unquote? And how do you feel about defunding police departments?
Well, thank you for that question. And I think that now more than ever, that's an important one to be asking. I am proud to say that I have the endorsement of the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association. Really worked to make sure I got that this time because I wanted to show that I was standing with our law enforcement. I think that the defund the police movement is not the approach that we should be taking. I think that the idea of being able to provide more resources to the communities to help them when it's a mental health issue or something like that would normally be dealt with the police because they're the ones who are immediately available and already on the ground. I think it makes sense to be able to provide that kind of support to the community, but to do that at the expense of law enforcement is not the direction we should be going. If anything, we should be putting more resources into law enforcement, keeping them well trained and keeping the recruitment ability high for them so that they're able to really go after that and make sure that communities aren't having to face what we have seen in this state over the last several months. We want to be able to support our police. I know a lot of our local law enforcement. I've spent a lot of time with them in ride-alongs and just meeting individually. Met with the county sheriffs just a few months ago to talk about some of the different issues that they're having with enforcements and just some of the struggles they had before the rioting that we saw in Minneapolis. And so it's just being exacerbated even more on just the importance of our law and order and our law enforcement and what they do for us. And now is not the time to be defunding them. We should be upping their resources so that they can provide better services and are well equipped to provide those better services.
All right, and the same question for Challenger Chris Baumberger. Too many German names here. That's my problem. I'm half Swede, half Norwegian. Okay, so the question again. Are you a, quote, law and order candidate, and how do you feel about defunding police departments?
Well, I went to school for corrections as part of my education, and I've also worked in the corrections field. When I was in college, I worked in a detox and juvenile detention center, and then later spent a year working as a prison guard. I am a law and order candidate, and I don't believe in defunding our police, but we do need to have some reform. I'll tell you a story. When I worked in the prison, one of my coworkers took down an inmate who was cuffed from behind, and he hadn't really done anything. And when somebody's restrained, they're not a threat, and when your hands are from behind, his face hit the floor. There's unnecessary force used, and when that happens, inmates, or in the situation of law enforcement in cities, the citizens lose trust and respect for law enforcement or correctional officers, whichever case it may be. And that puts our law enforcement community in harm's way. It puts them at risk. I think we saw that yesterday in Kentucky with a couple officers being shot. We need to make sure that we keep the public safe, we keep our law enforcement officers safe, and we'll be safer if we can earn the trust of citizens and treat them compassionately. We need to hold ourselves at a higher standard than the people committing crimes, and we need to be held accountable for when we don't.
Oh, all right, thank you. Any rebut, Representative? Okay. Next we go to a question that comes to us from Laverne, and this first goes to Chris Baumberger. The question is, how do you plan to address our crumbling infrastructure? Broad question, lots of room to roam.
You know, during my breaks at work, I go for walks, and I still see the public works stamping on sidewalks from the FDR administration. A lot of our infrastructure was built decades ago, and at that time the economy was in rough shape, and we employed people to build it up. I don't know if that's the solution, but I think everything needs to be on the table. Our unemployment is creeping up there. I think maybe if we need to invest, pass the bonding bill, put that money into rebuilding our infrastructure, and put some of these people to work that need jobs. I think that would be a start. It's going to take public money, I think, and outside investing in order to get that accomplished. But that's what I would like to start with.
Oh, all right, thank you. And our next question goes to, oh, I'm sorry. I'm way ahead of myself. I'm sorry, my apologies. You've got your time.
All right, well, that's a very important question for exactly what we're needing to be doing right now. We're seeing the challenges of our road systems not being where they need to be. We're seeing especially right now, the need for strong internet access, just having broadband straight to the home, no matter where you're living in the state, and what value that can bring. All the way up the roles in government, President Trump has been encouraging for more infrastructure bills to come forward so that we can start to really address some of those things at the national level and get some of that money down to the state level. I think that a bonding bill should be passed sooner rather than later. I think that as long as we can get some bipartisan support to go through it, or bipartisan authorship on it to make sure that it gets done, I would be willing to vote for a bill tomorrow to get that done so that we can get these projects going in the state and that they're assured to be going in the state. There are a number of different things that we could be working on right now, but we didn't get to that as it were in the last rounds for bonding. The partisanship gets a little bit too much in the way, and you mix the partisanship with the election year stuff, and it gets to be even more difficult to try and pass something. But I think the time to get a bonding bill passed and get our infrastructure pieces going is critical right now. There is a level of unemployment in the state that could be corrected with that, and the places need to be fixed anyway. It would be good if we took some time to actually really evaluate what we're doing throughout the state and what's important to us now and what isn't, because things have definitely changed in our values and our priorities in the last few months. And so really evaluating what would be the best for us and what our true needs are right now. And I would absolutely support that.
All right, thank you. And any rebut?
I'd like to add to the bonding bill. I think that needs to get done. Minnesota's still an attractive place for investments for this bonding bill, and the interest rates are low. It could be used to pay down old bonding bills with higher rates, and costs for these improvements continue to go up over time. So I think delaying it over the governor's executive order is just a political tactic, and it's not helping Minnesota.
And a rebuttal statement from Representative Schumacher.
Well, Mr. Baumberger reminded me some of that. I do want to give credit to Governor Walz. He didn't really let the legislature know ahead of time, but did go through a process for 2 months and have the bonds that were out there to be let out yet work to refinance those. So we got an even better interest rate on that. It was a great move. It saved us a lot of money to be able to do that. And it worked out well, and he deserves credit for making that decision. Again, it would have been nice if we had a little bit of a heads up on that, but that's where we are. Now, a bonding bill came up about 2 months ago, and I did vote against it at the time. We didn't have any kind of input on the House Republican side on what was going to be in that bill. And so if we want a bipartisan bill to pass, we should have bipartisan efforts to get into there. That's the only reason I voted against it then. I think we're at the point now where we just need to get one done, and would like to get one supported as soon as we could.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We go on to the next question, which will go to Representative Schumacher. Are there any reforms that you would support to increase police accountability?
I think there are definitely ways to increase accountability. I think that cultural change starts from within. With that, I think that if we can allow for more resources there so that our law enforcement aren't feeling so bogged down with all the responsibility that are given to them. Over the last decade, I've seen time after time when an issue comes up that people want to have addressed in the community, and well, who's going to take care of it? Well, I'll give it to law enforcement. They're the ones who are going around the streets anyway. that really starts to pile on for folks, and that added pressure, that added stress for all of these different expectations that we have for our law enforcement beyond just actual law enforcement changes the culture that they have in that community of law enforcement professionals. I think if we're able to ease back on some of that and help them help themselves in creating a culture where the bad actors are not protected, that they're not just kind of pushed to a precinct and left to be on their way. I think that if we have a culture shift there that allows them to let the good ones rise to the top and let the bad ones get out of the way, that we'll be all better served that way. And so if we're going to be doing reforms, I think it's reforms that actually have to come from law enforcement to suggest on ways that we can better help them, help us in reforming their culture so that they're able to do their job and that their public perception can be increased throughout the process.
All right, same question. And by the way, thank you to a viewer in Worthington for sending along this question. So we now ask the same question of challenger Chris Baumberger. Are there reforms that you would support to increase police accountability?
Yeah, it's certainly going to take a team effort, figuring out these reforms. I know my alma mater, Minnesota State Mankato, they train more four-year degree police officers than any other university in our state. And for the first time ever this last year, they reached out to the public to get ideas on how they could further improve or change the education or add to the program for those officers. And definitely is going to have to come from within the law enforcement community as well. But we need public input. We need, it's going to take a team effort. I do think that we need to make it easier for law enforcement officers to report the bad apples. I know in any job, it's hard to rat out one of your coworkers if they do something. It's uncomfortable. None of us like to be in that kind of situation. I think it's particularly difficult for law enforcement to turn in one of their fellow officers in blue. And but if we're going to maintain that respect and that trust from the community, we need to we need to hold the bad apples accountable and make sure we curb those actions before they become severe.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttal? On we go. That next question will go to Chris first. And the question is, will you support full funding by what means is not elucidated here? Is that a word? It's not detailed. What will you support full funding to create jobs by rebuilding our crumbling public infrastructure?
I'm sorry, what kind of funding?
Funding for our crumbling public
first
infrastructure.
part of the question.
Oh, we've done that one. I'm sorry. All right, then we go on to the next question.
No,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. What was the first part of that question? I didn't.
Well, it's irrelevant at this point. Your moderator is falling flat. So if you're grading out there, it starts with F. How does that sound? Okay, on we go. Okay, but it's still, this question first goes to Chris. So for you, this one, pretty straightforward. What is your opinion on right to work?
Yes, right to work. So according to the U.S. Department of Labor and U.S. Census Bureau, states that have a right to work have lower wages, higher poverty, less access to health care, and poorer education for children. I don't think we want any of those things for Minnesota. My brother-in-law, he's a union electrician, and he gets paid considerably higher than non-union electricians. Higher wages benefit our communities. They benefit small businesses. Puts a lot more money in the economy. And we need to protect our wages in Minnesota. I see a lot of people, we always talk about jobs going to South Dakota. Well, frankly, I see more people coming to Minnesota to work. Teachers, my brother-in-law is an electrician. We make more money in Minnesota. We don't want to be like our neighboring right-to-work states. We want to maintain high wages and our high quality of life.
All right, same question for Representative Schumacher. What is your opinion on right to work?
Yes, thank you. I have not supported any right to work efforts that have come across. I think that a lot of times coupling the private and the public unions in the right to work effort is what derails the process. I would like to see a process where it's separated, and then we could have a real discussion on it. I think if people are willing and going to organize, that if they have the rights within the law, that they can do that. What I do think needs reform, and sooner rather than later, would be on the prevailing wage point that we have. When we're having to pay projects, especially when our cities and counties are the ones doing it, when we have to pay for projects and we have to pay wages that are set in the Twin Cities for people who are working out here, we have a lot of trouble with that. Just being able to afford that, because the wage scale can be so different, but when it comes to prevailing wage, we don't have that option anymore. That's the trouble we've had in many of our counties in trying to get broadband to every town and township, is because the prevailing wage portion takes most of the grant money away from being used for actual infrastructure and goes to wages. Even though those wages aren't reflective of the region, they're reflective of what they get paid in the Twin Cities. And so even if we could just break it down into more of a region-based system for that, we would be much better suited and much better served by doing something like that. And maybe we could get past the conversation about right to work if we could just find a few reforms along the way to deal with that. Now, I know when it comes to other points, we've had both law enforcement and teacher unions, the discussion being of their disbandment just because of some of the bad actors that we've seen, especially in the law enforcement piece. That conversation has come up, and I think that's going to continue until we can make some reforms to the system, but not necessarily right to work. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttal?
I guess I would like to add that it's interesting that we don't want to pay wages in our part of the state, that are similar to in the cities. I know our cost of living is lower, but it's the reason that we lose a lot of youth and people from our area. They go to where the higher wages are. I love the quality of life in Southwest Minnesota, but I don't like to think that we need to pay lower in our part of the country than they do in the urban areas.
All right, and to Representative Schumacher.
Well, on that point, I don't know how you could be in favor of something like right to repair, but at the same time be against something like prevailing wage, because it's along the same concept. If you're going to be willing to do the job in this region, whether you're the certified one or not, then you should have the ability to do that, and you shouldn't have someone else setting your wages for you or the price that you're going to pay. And so I'm just trying to stay consistent with that piece of it and try to provide actual jobs. They may not pay what you get paid in the Twin Cities to do the jobs, but you're getting the job done and you're able to show more work for it at the end of the day.
All right, gentlemen, on we go to our next question, which comes to us from a viewer in Curry. I'll read the question, and then there's a little of a footnote that the individual sends along. Do you support or would you author a bill to provide more funding to small cities for streets and highways? The viewer notes that townships and counties get funding, but cities under 500 population no longer do. All right, and that goes to Representative Schumacher.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we absolutely should be doing that. We have an unfair system, especially for those who are able to, say, pump gas in their centers. We've been trying for about 6 years now to have permanent funding set for cities that are under 5,000 and under 500 in order to say that if you're pumping gas in your city, that the taxes that are collected there, part of that should stay at the local level to encourage people to pump locally so that their local roads can get the support that they need, because the infrastructure piece runs every up and down for that. And so, yes, absolutely, we should be looking for ways with that within the existing gas tax structure to be able to divide those funds out so that the smaller towns are able to get that as well.
All right, and the same question for challenger Chris Baumberger. Do you support or would you author a bill to provide more funding to small cities for streets and highways, noting that townships and counties get funding, but cities under 500 no longer do?
Yeah, definitely, that infrastructure costs money, and we never like to pay more than we have to for these repairs, but I feel like we could pay a little more for gas in order to provide some of this infrastructure repair. I know even myself, I would be happy to pay another nickel for a gallon of gas or whatnot in order to get some of this, make sure that we have good roads in our state. We never like to pay more, but things don't get done for free either. And it also provides jobs. And when people are there repairing those roads and those streets in those towns of 500 people, they're also eating at the cafe at noon, and they're staying and lodging in that area. And it brings in money to that local economy as well. So I think it's a win-win for a small cost.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttal? All right. On we go. This next question will go to Chris. That is coming to us from Pipestone, as a matter of fact. Thank you for joining us. One of the things holding back economic development is lack of quality housing. Is there a role for the state to solve this dilemma?
I wonder if they actually meant affordable housing. I think quality housing exists, maybe not at an affordable price. I know housing, we can't grow our economy in rural areas without housing existing for employees. And we need to try to get outside investing in townhomes, apartments. I know in the town I live in of Slayton, there's very little rentals available, and the same could be said of other rural towns in my district. It's difficult to find rentals, and I think we definitely need to improve that.
All right, and Representative Schumacher, one of the things holding back economic development, lack of housing. Is there a role for the state to help solve this?
Yes, I think there is a role that they can be playing. I think that the role they're playing now doesn't best serve the folks that we're trying to serve with that. I think that Mr. Baumberger was absolutely right when he talks about the need for more assisted living and aged living facilities. When someone who's lived in a house, grew their family up there, and decides that they can no longer stay in that house and moves into some kind of senior living setting or a setting that's a little bit more friendly to us as we grow older, it opens up property for the development and for starter homes or for rentals to get that going. And so some of the housing choking that we have going on in our area right now is because people are able to stay in their homes longer than they had before, and that doesn't make the market for available housing there like it had been in the past. And so we have worked at the state level to make sure that there was more of a focus on some of that senior type housing to open up those starter home types of things. Right now, though, it's going to be difficult. I don't know if the person who asked the question has tried to buy any lumber lately, but to get pressure treated is impossible, and the cost of any kind of building has gone up 2 to 3 times. And so whatever the state does, we want to make sure that we're getting the best value for what's being built too. We want to make sure that it's within market range. If the state comes in and builds a house and over 30 years the house can't even be paid back because it was so expensive to build in the first place, that's not serving us either. And so we need to find alternatives to that, and we can do that within our existing system to still provide the housing without the excess cost.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttal?
I would like to just add to that statement. It is difficult to build new, Joe's right with the cost of materials nowadays. It makes me think about my previous house. Actually, I bought a $30,000 fixer-upper. I was kind of on difficult times, and I got it for cheap, and I gutted it out, and I fixed it up, and I had a nice house to live in. I had a lot of equity in it. Somehow we need to encourage people, because our small towns have a lot of rough homes, and they would make good homes again if we could just somehow get some low interest loans for people that maybe can't afford to buy a new starter home at $120,000 or $150,000, but they could afford to buy a $30,000 or $40,000 house and put $20,000 or $30,000 into it and build up some sweat equity. I would like to see that happen. It'd also improve our towns as well by getting some of these homes fixed up.
We appreciate your staying with us through some technical difficulties here at Pioneer Public TV. As we conclude this debate, each candidate will offer a 2-minute closing statement. We'll hear first from Representative Joe Schumacher.
Well, thank you again for the questions tonight and the ability to hear just what kind of questions are out there and what is on the minds of the people in this district. As I mentioned before, the last 10 years have been an incredibly humbling and quite a gift from the people of Southwest Minnesota to allow me to represent them. The people here are just fantastic. The way that the work ethic that they have, their faith, their family, everything that they believe in, and to be able to carry that message to St. Paul is quite valuable to me, and it means a lot that the trust of this district really is put in me for that. Even on days when I don't like what I'm hearing at the Capitol, and days when I'm not winning on the winning side of votes, and days when common sense seems to have taken the day off and it's left to the politicians to make up for the rest of it, it's still absolutely an honor to serve you. We have a lot of challenges as a state. This year especially, we have seen the number of things come forward that we haven't seen before. And so, as always, the optimist says that with great challenges come great opportunities. And so we have opportunities when it comes to things like the $5 billion deficit that we have to deal with. We can look at it from a perspective of raising taxes or cutting spending, or we can look at it as a way of reforming the way that we do government. And if the general public was expected to pivot during the last 6 or 9 months for their things, we should be able to do that as a government as well, and pivot to a way that provides better services at a lower price and saves money so that we can use that money to provide actual services to people. We can look at things like education and passing an amendment like the Page-Kashkari amendment to ensure that we have education and quality education in the Constitution for students, and we don't have to worry about whether the legislature is going to define that funding. And I hope I can get your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And now, final statement comes from DFL challenger Chris Baumberger.
I want to say thanks to those of you that tuned in. I want to tell you guys, I'm not the typical Democratic candidate that you've had. I've actually been a Republican most of my life. In 2016, I supported John Kasich. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle of the political spectrum. On some issues, we fall on one side of the line. On other issues, we fall on the other. I'm here to compromise with both parties bring some common sense back from this district. And I do that by emphasizing and trying to put myself in the shoes of whoever it is I'm working with. I hope that you'll consider voting for me this on November 3rd. And if you do, I'm going to promise that that if I'm elected, I'll only run for 4 terms, 8 years total, because I believe that we need change now and then. I think we should have term limits similar to surrounding states, and too often we get bogged down with the same candidates decade after decade, and we need other people to represent us occasionally and to bring in some fresh ideas. And with that, thank you, and I appreciate your support.
That concludes our program. Thanks to both candidates for joining us. Special thanks to our viewers who sent along the questions. To watch this and other Meet the Candidates episodes, past or present, visit video.pioneer.org or the free PBS video app. Just choose Pioneer PBS as your local station. Thank you for joining us on Meet the Candidates.